And we want to introduce to you regularly our guests. One of our guests here, well, let me introduce to you my cohort in crime. This is Brittany Simpson, onboarding and outreach manager of Site Strategics. How are you doing, Brittany?
Good, how are you?
I'm tripping over your title again.
That's all right. My name, my title.
Doesn't really matter.
I'm here every week. It doesn't really matter.
She actually just kind of camps out here. And,
I don't actually get to leave this room.
We bring her food. You got to pass it underneath the door.
Underneath the door. That's right.
Let's introduce to you our first guest. This gentleman is Michael Huber. He's the president and CEO of Indy Chamber. Welcome so much to Edge of Indy.
Thanks, Aaron. Thanks, Brittany. Good to be here.
Of course. Thanks
You're
for being here.
more than welcome. Hey, Michael, if you could give our viewers and our listeners a bit of an idea of the function of the Indy Chamber, what would you say in 3 words?
Oh, you're limiting him to 3? 3 is hard. You don't.
3 seconds. No. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm just my brain just froze when you said 3 words. We've
no worries. All right.
Yeah, we've been around for 130 years, and we're
you look great.
Thank you.
Wow.
Thank you. Yeah. High protein, lots of cardio.
Mm-hmm.
You had that stint with a beard.
Yeah, thank you. I tried the beard. It didn't work out. We've been around for about 130 years, and we're the place where business comes together to meet each other. We especially thrive when businesses across different industries and disciplines come together. But then we also serve a function to really try to transform the community. To create the kind of place where anybody can thrive. And so those are through initiatives that we drive as the leader, like mass transit expansion, which is something that we care a lot about. Mm-hmm. And then a lot of times we support, just telling the story of our city, especially emerging industries like tech, which is why I'm, again, lucky to be here today.
Oh, fantastic. Fantastic.
What about Indy makes it such a booming economy right now? Like it seems to be everything. It's really hot here now.
Yeah.
Like it's hot for growth and development.
Yeah.
So what about Indy is so great right now?
So I'm gonna resist the to go down the traditional chamber, which is we have the best people in the best. I mean, we do, but
that's the truth.
So
it's okay. They know
we are still the population center of the United States. If you graph where the entire U.S. population lives, the crossroads of America, we are that in terms of the easiest place to get in terms of the convergence of highways, and we've got the second biggest FedEx hub in the world. So literally more people and more cargo come through here than just about anywhere in the world. But the growth in Indianapolis, we're a newer city compared to other Midwestern cities like Chicago, Cincinnati, St. Louis, Louisville. The growth in Indianapolis only happens in the 50s and 60s, and so Columbus, Ohio is on a similar track. We really explode in the 1950s, and so we are a place that's got a lot of the kind of values associated with being in the Midwest, and people are friendly here. People do want to help here, but there's also been a huge import thing happening here in the last 5-6 decades. But the last 2 decades have been really, really exciting, and so our growth has been more recent. And the last thing I'll say is, if you look at our mix of industries compared to other cities, we have a more diverse mix of life sciences, tech, which you know well, advanced manufacturing, which is a lot like tech. Think about Cummins and Rolls-Royce now and transmission exploding. Ag and ag tech is huge, and then add sports. If you add motorsports, pro sports, and the NCAA and all the companies that want to be here, sports is a multi-billion-dollar value chain, and a lot of other cities have those industries too. Mm-hmm. But for a metro area of just under 2 million, you'd be very hard pressed to find another region or metro area that's got that diversity, particularly of tech and R&D jobs across those different verticals. So that's part of our job in Indy Chamber is making sure that we've got the talent, the infrastructure, the policies that we can continue to really feed those industries, because they also create indirect jobs. They create service jobs, which benefit everybody too.
Absolutely. I was blown away back in 2014 when Steve Forbes came through with his Innovation Summit.
Yeah.
And the number of diverse industries that were represented there. Ag was huge.
Yeah.
And Cummins was certainly there. But there were so many different stories that don't get nearly as much media play as the tech.
Yeah.
scene
And
does.
that's something, I'm glad you brought that up, because that is something that, there's a whole thing about you might organizations or even individuals you meet, and you'll be like, that person's all sizzle, no steak. You know what I mean? And in a sense, we're the exact opposite.
We love steak here.
We do love steak. Leonard Hoops, who you probably know, runs Visit Indy. Oh, as somebody, he's lived on the West Coast. My wife's from the West Coast. Says, the product is much better than the story, is better than the information. That's why the work that you're doing at Edge of Indy is really important in telling the story. But who would know, if you live on either coast or internationally, that we've got one of the highest concentrations of R&D jobs in the country across all those industries I mentioned, right? Who would know that? A lot of my job and a lot of it's inspiring. It's frustrating at times too. Is trying to get people who live here to understand that. Fighting that inferiority complex that you find with people. And I don't know if you guys have experienced this, but I find that some of our best ambassadors are people who come here from other places, parts of the United States or other countries, and they get it after they're here for a couple of years. And so the work that the Indy Chamber is doing, we're really trying to tap into that. Instead of being that sort of typical cheerleader, we're trying to do a better job pulling these stories and compiling these stories and to reach a broader audience. And again, that's one reason why we very much appreciate the work that you do here on Edge of Indy.
Appreciate that. I appreciate that greatly. You're absolutely right. And there's a lot of individuals that are realizing that we don't toot our own horns, for lack of a better analogy.
No, we don't.
Nearly as well as the coasts do.
Yeah.
So these organizations are starting to form to help lift up brands that don't tout themselves. There's a humble nature in the Midwest that kind of goes against natural PR,
right?
Right. So for people like Jason Williams over at Centric Indy, where that lift up innovation across all of the different industries, not just tech. So we're starting to see more and more of that type of reference and broadcast outside of the tech channel.
A perfect example, and Jason is connected to this community, is and it's one of our new emerging efforts, is we've got all these great tech companies. Many of them are affiliated with formerly ExactTarget, now Salesforce, formerly Compendium, now Oracle. And there's such a great opportunity with the success that Lilly has had, and Cummins and Roche and companies like that. There are about 20 companies in our market, successful worldwide. We're very fortunate that many of them are growing. But there's still a huge opportunity to connect that entrepreneurial talent, companies like Jason's, and he's already very well connected, but to those life sciences companies, so it's almost like tech as a horizontal, okay, and trying to get our worldwide successful companies really more and more and more bought into that ecosystem, and it's happening. You hear more and more about local companies getting a great project with Lilly, or getting a great project with Rolls-Royce, but that's a lot of the work that we're trying to do, and it's more than a I appreciate the sentiment of buy local, because that's something we really stand for as Indy Chamber. And we're even trying to go take that and even go a step further, and basically to our major companies and institutions and hospitals basically say, hey, spend a little time discovering these entrepreneurial companies, because you may, and I'll say will, get a better product in many senses with a company that's down the street. Don't just assume that New York company is the one you need to keep going to, right? And that's exciting. I mean, it is a challenge, but trying to build those bridges between entrepreneurial companies and more of our anchors, and our successful institutions is really where we are right now.
Culturally, it does seem like right now companies are more open to, like you said, working with those local and it might just be the nature of how things have worked out. I don't know if millennials are driving that mindset along the way, but I really do see more and more companies are thinking like, okay, you know what, we don't need to go to the coasts for XYZ item or XYZ service. We can keep it here in the Midwest.
Yeah, we're seeing that ethos a lot more. I think the I'm bullish on millennials. I know it's the cool thing for I'm Gen X. It's a cool thing for people my age and older to complain about millennials, but I think a lot of the values and aspirations of my millennial and younger employees, I'm really kind of inspired by. You all are really very.
We're not all bad.
No, you're. I know I'm totally generalizing, but very very altruistic. Very resourcewell and multifunctional. So I think millennials are driving part of that. I think there's a greater consciousness about being international too, in our approach and in our outreach, which is something that's inspiring to me. And I think you're seeing it a lot more. And we have data to back this up, but also anecdotally, the local food and local restaurant and local craft beer and local artisan crafts and entrepreneurial businesses seems like it's really exploding in the last especially 5 years. So those are all things we have going for us. If I may, I think the one thing that we're seeing is more consciousness around helping those less fortunate, because with all this exciting growth, we still have multi-generational poverty. I think the decision of your business to locate, where it did in a redeveloping area, that creates jobs for everybody, regardless of where you are, on the income strata is really, really important. And we're seeing more sort of consciousness in the business community there. That's why we're getting much more involved in education and education reform and in workforce. And it's not just a corporate social responsibility thing. We're seeing business embrace doing work in these areas because it's in their own long-term self-interest.
And programs like Employ Up that are coming through and being able to allow people to come back into the workforce with training. TechPoint is also right there in this space of being able to give them experiences inside of Angie's List and Perk and these different organizations.
You can go to indychamber.com and read more about our services in economic development and marketing, advocacy and business, small business development, micro lending, and things like that. I'm really proud of the work that we're doing. It was just announced last week, the second year of a federal grant with the SBA, Small Business Administration. Last year we spent over 1,600 hours business coaching for offenders who had just been released and some pre-release, helping them with their new business ideas. The path to employment, it's tough if you have a criminal record. We have over 5,000 people with criminal records who are come back to society every year in Indianapolis. Many of them, even though we're trying to change this, face obstacles in terms of getting a second chance and getting hired. And for many of them, the best path is going to be business ownership, service business ownership. And so we're really trying to ramp up. It's got to be business, that's our core competency. But we are trying to aim that business expertise at areas like, ex-offenders coming back into the community more and more with child care centers, helping them develop capacity to serve more and more kids. And so that's something that I'm really proud of, and I hope that will continue to grow.
That is great. That's great to hear.
Thanks.
I hadn't actually heard about that program.
Yeah, it's READY. It's REDI. If you just Google Indy Chamber READY, we're in the second year of the READY program. We are looking for volunteers and business coaches, and that's across the whole dimension of serving entrepreneurial companies. But of course, for people who have a particular passion and want to get involved with ex-offenders returning to society, and we're doing more in the nonprofit space, especially if it's child care centers and organizations working with youth. We're finding that just because you're a nonprofit designation, that doesn't mean that you don't have a need for business coaching in case. And you're probably finding it's really the opposite. A lot of the acumen that nonprofits need is the blocking and tackling of running a business.
Yeah, they're passionate in their space, but
exactly
they can actually the barbs of running a business.
Yeah.
and hitting not only a payroll, but also hitting all their different expenses regularly that need to happen, and also forecasting and envisioning what's going to be happening for the next 3 years.
Yeah.
Those business planning models aren't there. Readily embraced whenever an entrepreneur starts the nonprofit execution.
And
right.
And I am the optimist. I mean, in today's you Edge of Indy and your company is very geared into this highly networked, connected world we live in. And sometimes all we need to do is just remove a couple of the barriers for folks, whether it's nonprofit leaders or small business leaders, to just be opened up to this world of resources that's out there. But oftentimes taking that first step and understanding what's available, it can be really intimidating. And I'd say that's a big theme for us, is constantly trying to connect big industry and these companies that we're grateful for in Indianapolis that have been successful worldwide, and to connect them to entrepreneurial companies, grassroots organizations. And it gets very complicated. I'm sometimes I feel like I'm a mile wide and an inch deep, but it's a role that we embrace for sure.
Very cool. Well, we certainly appreciate what you're doing. What specific projects or growth should Indy be excited about starting in 2018?
Yeah, I think telling our story to specific segments nationally and internationally, doing a much more aggressive job telling the story of tech and how it's helping to grow the economy, doing a much more aggressive job of marketing to specific segments of it's about retaining and then it's about attracting new. We're going to do a much more aggressive job trying to retain students from our universities here. For some reason, Indiana University, where my wife and I met in graduate school, and Purdue University, and we've got this concentration of great universities here, and we still lose too many of the graduates, more than we really should. And some of our competitors are doing a really good job there. There's a lot that we can learn. And then, we can't do enough for entrepreneurial companies. More and more of the jobs in America are being created by existing entrepreneurial companies. We're trying to change a model that has been based on attracting companies and getting them to move here. Occasionally you get an Amazon, 5-week sprint drill, and that's all really exciting, and we compete hard for those kinds of things. But the reality is the majority of the job growth is going to come from existing entrepreneurial businesses. So reducing barriers to growth, providing incentives, making sure that we've got the best environment for talent here in our city and our region is really, really important.
Well, you did speak to the colleges and the IUPUI MAC program that's down there with Kevin Burkhopes. Those are things that are so innovative that's happening, and we're probably going to be focusing on them in an upcoming Edge of Indy episode.
Great.
They're doing this collaborative education, non-teacher guided environment that is just taking the entire campus by fire, and all the different disciplines and all the different sciences is just fantastic. Those are things that are we're brandishing innovation, but we need to shout to the ramparts what's going on here.
I agree. Yeah, man, our medical informatics cluster here is incredible.
Yeah,
and you can go on down the list of all it's academic and industry resources. You're going to see the area on Indiana Avenue between 10th and 16th Street really explode in the next few years. It's a district called 16 Tech. The private sector has raised over $300 million to create this shared research platform innovation district there. And that would actually be a great feature for you, which I can follow up on.
Absolutely.
Is the Biosciences Research Institute, and then the district that we call 16 Tech, and everything happening there with Lilly, Roche, Cook, and other companies on this kind of shared research but kind of flex IT space environment. It's going to be fantastic.
Can you tell us? Sorry, go ahead.
No, yes, I love coming across new ideas while we're doing the show. That's fantastic.
Well, you and your ideas.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about Global Indy, that initiative too? Because I saw that on your website and thought, like, whoa, that's gonna it is big, and B, it's gonna be bigger. So can you tell us about that?
So through our work with the Brookings Institution, which is pretty well documented on our website, we discovered that one of the best things that we can do to help entrepreneurial and mid-market companies to help them grow is to connect with resources in other countries, maybe export markets, other collaborators in other countries. And it seems really complicated, and in fact, it's so easy. We have so many companies that would be great candidates for tools like the Export-Import Bank, which you may be familiar with. U.S. Commercial Services is always looking for companies. There's so many resources out there looking to take companies overseas. Purchasing power is growing in developing countries faster than it's growing in U.S. and Canada and Western Europe. And so, if we can get it sounds sort of aspirational. We have connected dozens of companies to export markets in China, in Brazil, and it's been really incredible. And a lot of times, it's just through a phone call to U.S. Commercial Services or to a lawyer or banker, and we have a lot of them in Indianapolis who know how to take companies overseas. And so, Global Indy is all about making those connections, but it's particularly aimed at small and mid-sized companies.
It's amazing what an email or a phone call can do, right?
It is. It's like your show. I mean, there's an entire world out there, and a lot of times just making that first connection can really change everything for an individual or company. And so we always try to never let go of that optimism, because a lot of times it's just that one contact, that one relationship.
Yeah, and it's the advocacy of those individuals that is huge. Speaking of advocacy, I mean, let's talk about Indy Chamber.
Yeah,
and the value of becoming an Indy Chamber member.
Yeah.
Where Site Strategics is certainly proud to be one.
Thank you.
Just paint the picture of the opportunities for membership.
I try to always keep it simple in terms of the value proposition. We're growing again for the first time in several years. We're approaching 2,000 members again across different industries. So, and we always want people to approach it with some self-interest, right? If you want to meet companies in other industries very fast, especially, like I said, in other industries, other disciplines, I don't think there's anywhere you can do that faster than through involvement with us. But then, to take that a step further, if you're passionate about education and workforce development, which is, going to be the issue for us going forward, if you're passionate about working with other companies that are trying to tell the story nationally or internationally, if you're passionate about connecting other employees and organizations to opportunity, and if you have a real interest or passion in making sure that we've got the best policy framework at the state and local level, then there's no better place to do that. We can connect you with other companies who are doing really important work in all of those areas. And we've got over 1,900 members. Our relationship with every single one is a little bit different. And so a lot, we like to take that first step by connecting you to other industries that you might not know. We like to follow through by getting you connected in a meaningful way to an initiative or a team, something that is really changing the city and changing the region.
One of your resources on your website, which when I found, it made me gasp. I was like, oh, this is amazing. Your Indy Navigator resource. Yeah. That speaks to exactly what you're talking about right now, which is connecting those organizations. So tell us about that.
And so Indy Navigator is part of a bigger initiative that we're trying to build up, and that is a virtual front door for businesses and entrepreneurs that can help you connect to sources of capital, literally, and investors, depending on where you are. It can help connect you to just troubleshooting issues of permitting and design. If you're renovating a building or building new, it can connect you to service providers, like banking and legal and things like that. There's a lot that's really, really industry specific that we don't do. You have trade associations, things that do that. Connecting people across these different industries, something like this we call it the Virtual Front Door Project, is something that we think is core to who we are. And there's a lot more where that came from. So thanks for bringing up Indy Navigator.
When I saw it, it was like it reminded me of college and the corkboard, how you would post something up there and then people would walk by and take it. It's just such a rich resource that if companies are not using that, you should definitely take a look at it.
No, thank you.
And you just revamped your website as well just recently.
We're working on it, and it's sort of a multi-generational thing because you've got we need to have a presence in terms of companies that are interested in Indianapolis, and then we also need to have a presence that can be a resource for our elected officials and things like that. So it's sort of an ongoing phased process, but that release is imminent, and we're really excited about that. We're also doing more in terms of content creation, and we've talked about this, doing a much better job telling those individual stories. For one thing I've learned about cities and regions that are really great environments for entrepreneurial companies, it's like you don't earn that status by accident, and it's actually not enough just to have the entrepreneurs. If you can't tell their stories, you're dead in the water, right? And so we've got so many great entrepreneurial companies, and we're prepared to invest a lot more to tell those stories on a variety of fronts.
Very good. Well, Michael Huber, we really appreciate your time today, stopping by. I know you've got a busy schedule, but can you give us, through your to wax poetically a little bit, can you give us, through your lens, what makes Indianapolis such an entrepreneurial-friendly city?
We make stuff.
We make good stuff.
and where so it's okay. So the
take two.
The U.S. No, for real. The world's economy and the U.S. economy is becoming more and more differentiated. And we make stuff here really, really well. So we have entire parts of our economy that are based on, financial engineering, New York City. I love New York City, but, based on financial engineering, in LA on the entertainment industry and things like that. We grow things and make things here. That will continue. The way that we grow things and make things is going to become increasingly automated, but we've got the manufacturing and tech assets here that we can really benefit from that. We can be the economy where we still grow things and make things, but all that R&D related to manufacturing and ag is right here. And that's really exciting for me. I also see, I'm reading the tea leaves, I see the relationship with companies like FedEx growing here, and that logistics hub that we are as the center of the U.S. population, which is growing more and more into a worldwide hub. You can start to imagine how all these pieces are gonna fit together very well.
Absolutely.
We just have to do it. We can't lose focus though on retaining the talent that's here and making sure that we're aggressively welcoming talent from around the country and around the world. And we have to do both. It's not one or the other. I know I blew way past the parameters you gave me, Aaron. But
there's the passion, folks.
I mean,
I appreciate it.
For the CEO of Indy Chamber, he's got to be able to plug in and share that and wax poetically. That was beautiful.
No, thanks.
So becoming an Indy Chamber is very easy.
It is really easy. Yeah, just go to indychamber.com. You'll meet. We only hire people. It's basically two things. We only hire people who have a natural curiosity about business and entrepreneurship, and people who have a passion for changing the city and transforming the city. We always say, if you don't have those two things, it's just not going to work out. We prefer to think about it in the positive, though. if you have those two things,
then it will
we
work
love
out.
to talk. Right? Yeah. And so you go to our website. Someone will follow up. And
I'm sorry, this isn't for you. Go ahead.
right. Exactly.
Wow.
Right.
No, you're absolutely. And that's where that's what's the fabric of business inside of Indianapolis is that you're seeing that so much, and it's a great resource to be able to connect, to be able to benefit from the offerings that Indy Chamber provides on a regular basis. I mean, there's so much. Brittany pulled up one here that's coming up here real soon. What's that? The Small Business Saturday is coming
Small
up.
Business Saturday is at the end of the month. And
that we run. So if you look at our calendar, we run over 100 events a year. We don't recommend everybody go to 100 events a year, but that's where if you get in touch with us and we know more about your goals,
right?
Myself or any number, we've got about a full team of about 60 across all of our verticals, and we'll find a person that can help your business identify that plan of attack, so you know exactly which events and which initiatives are gonna meet your goals. And again, there's no substitute for just making some initial connections with companies. Maybe they're in different industries. Maybe there are other entrepreneurs that have been there before and that are really going places. It's exciting.
One quick question from our audience before we break here. Gary Ryder actually is asking, how can we identify stuff bought here that is not made here for startup ideas?
Stuff bought here that is not made here for startup ideas. I love Gary. Hi, Gary. That's stuff bought here that's not made here for startup ideas. I think really doubling down on the fabrication and 3D printing. And I don't know if this was the intent of Gary's question, but this is what it makes me think of. One of our big initiatives right now is to encourage development of entrepreneurial curriculum more and more within education. We do a lot of work in K-12. We do a lot of work with the Indianapolis Public Schools, our biggest school district in the region and in the state. And I think that's part of the key. We've got all these great manufacturing companies, manufacturing entrepreneurs, and we're trying to get those folks more and more and more plugged in with education so that kids start growing up with more of this ethos of invention and making things with your hands and taking advantage of the existing technology. And we don't always do this well. When we do it well, we find that entrepreneurs and business folks are super energized about getting connected with schools. I'm really proud of some work that we've done with the Indianapolis Public Schools on helping them understand their entire facilities inventory, its utilization, and the possibilities for alternative uses. So there's a lot there. Thanks for the question.
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks to our audience. Michael, we know you're busy and you got to bounce to another meeting here. We do want to share with you, our audience, how you can get a hold of Michael on Twitter, Michael_J_Huber, as well as at Indy Chamber, right? On Facebook, just look for Indy Chamber, as well as the website, indychamber.com. You've got all the socials, right?
Yes.
Check. And hey, we really appreciate your time today, and I'm certain that we're going to be back and connecting with you on different opportunities that we want to lift up for Indianapolis.
Thank you, Aaron and Brittany, and thanks for everything you do on Edge of Indy, featuring these companies and organizations that are really changing the city. So thank you.
You're more than welcome.
It's a treat for us.
We love it, and it's great. It kind of fills us with energy every time we're talking to people like you.
Great.
Fantastic.